And we are live.
All right.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Reef.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew?
Exciting show for you tonight. Lots of great stuff going on.
Do you know Obama and Bruce Springsteen have a podcast now?
I heard that, yeah.
Wow, that's a weird
I
pairing.
don't know anything about it, but
The only thing I saw was like on Twitter, Mark Maron was commenting because apparently I guess they have the same setup that Mark Maron does. So
oh, okay.
whatever.
That's kind of interesting.
The other,
Also not.
I mean, that seems like I've like I don't know if they're friends or like, I mean, I know like Bruce Springsteen's kind of like this seen as this like working class hero, but he's also like pretty liberal guy, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that somewhat makes sense. And then the other podcast I've been listening to is called Ty and That Guy, and this is the Ty Frank, the one half of the James S.A. Corey writing team,
Okay.
and Wes Chatham from The Expanse, and they're just kind of doing a side podcast because I guess they were doing podcasts like sort of like after watch for all the episodes of The Expanse, and then this is sort of like they're like, hey, let's just keep doing a podcast. So that's been pretty interesting, just to hear those guys like kind of give their own history that like I knew nothing about. Like there's some stuff I knew about The Expanse, like they originally wrote that for like a video game, but then like the people they wrote it for decided to drop it, and so they still own the rights to it, and then it became like their own personal D&D game that they like mailed their like they emailed their turns back and forth to play this D&D game. And so like what like the James Holden character was a character that somebody created for this D&D game, and so that's why he's called James Holden in the TV show. And why why the doctor died when he suddenly got like hit by like just some random debris, and that sudden death was because like one of the guys they were playing with had to drop out for whatever reason, so they killed off his character. That was the character that got killed off. And I guess he used to work in like I'm not sure, he said like computer software, but that didn't necessarily mean like video games. He was like a manager for like 10 years. And then just one day he just said, yeah, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. And then he just became a writer, and his wife like went back to college to get her PhD. And then that Wes Chatham dude, like I just assumed he was like Canadian, because I figured like, you know, like if there's like somebody on like a sci-fi show and you're like you never seen him before, it's like it's probably some just like Canadian background extra that just it's getting some front some front camera time or whatever. But like no, he is I think he's from North Carolina. He was in the Navy from 97 to 2003.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't know that about him either. And then like just became an actor. But yeah, he was like I think in the Navy he was like helicopter rescue or something like that. And then and he also used to like work in like aircraft repair.
Oh, okay.
But like, so that like makes sense for his character. Yeah. And then they had one episode they had what's that guy? The guy that plays Miller.
Oh, Thomas Jane.
Yeah, he has a crazy life. he dropped out of high school when he was 15 to pursue acting. And apparently a neighbor like ran an acting school in Bethesda, Maryland, and so he went down there, and like some Bollywood guys were in town, so he was like in a Bollywood movie when he was like a teenager. And
Nice.
then he moved to like California and then was like homeless for like 4 years before he actually got a job. He was like cleaning up gay nightclubs and stuff like that. Because he's just he's a teenager with no job experience, living out of his car.
That's amazing. I didn't know that about him.
Yeah, and now he has a production company. He directed some episodes of this current season, and they're working on a Stephen King novel. I'm not sure which one. It's like one of the only ones that doesn't take place in Maine.
Oh, okay. I'd have to
Well, I don't know. The Gunslinger doesn't really take place in Maine, but it ends up
Yeah.
there. I don't know, something about like a guy who, like goes to, I guess the book was based on like experience where Stephen King like had to go to like take a piss out back somewhere like at a gas station, and like he's like, what if I just fell into this river? What would happen to my life then, or whatever? But yeah, like Thomas Jane has been in like 4 different Stephen King novels, so I guess it's his favorite novelist, so he's like getting to make Stephen King stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because he was in The Mist, he was in that 1884 movie that we
Yep.
watched, and then he's doing this one, and he's in like one other one. And they really sold me on Joe Hill, which that's Stephen King's son.
Yeah, he writes some good novels.
Yeah, they're like, hey, he's just as good. He's not an alcoholic. Well, that I know of, but
He is.
Or a cokehead.
so yeah, that's the podcast. I've been actually I just heard about the Obama of Springsteen one. I haven't listened to that one, but I listened to the Ty and That Guy podcast. So.
Yeah, I might check. I mean, I listened to Hillary's podcast for.
So another podcast was talking about the other day, because there's Hillary has a podcast and so does Bill Clinton, and they're like, is it together? It's like, no.
I mean, has anything they've done in their life really been together? Then
Yeah. And then there's also the weird thing, convergent of all the podcasts I'm listening to, because everybody's, well, not everybody. There's like one podcast to listen to, and they kind of branch out into like 5 other podcasts I listen to, and then it just gives me this impression that everybody is rewatching The Sopranos. So,
Oh yeah. Someone told me there was a podcast where Steve Sharippa and who's the young guy? Christopher, the guy who played Christopher. What's his name? Michael Imperioli.
yes.
Like they just talk about the Sopranos
Yeah.
episodes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard about that one.
Yeah, I hear it's good. But yeah, there's like that's because we did, when we were doing the 99 feature, we watched like the pilot episode because that came out in 99.
Yeah.
I feel like these podcasts make it sound like way more interesting, because I remember like when we talked about it, we didn't have a whole lot to say other than just like, I can't remember what we said, but like
I'm trying to remember what we thought of The Sopranos, because the pilot was kind of odd for that, because you didn't know exactly what it was.
well, we're also
I mean,
trying to place it like in its time, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like of its time, but it's also not, because it's also like kind of like it's using the Goodfellas template, but then it's like way more subversive than that. But you don't really get into the whole subversion stuff until you get into like, the whole arc of the whole like series arc of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Which is like, I guess why it's aged so well is because like, oh, they're being very subversive with pretty standard tropes of the time.
yeah.
But also like how people wildly reacted to it, where it's like you'd have people like, I'm the Tony Soprano, and it's like, you're not supposed to like Tony Soprano, right? Like, what?
Yeah, he's a violent killer with some emotional problems, not stemming from being a violent killer, but from a fucked up childhood. all the murder and death doesn't really bother him. It's just like mom issues. So.
And then they got that prequel movie coming out at some point.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of things that may or may not be coming.
No,
out,
that one's I believe is made.
Oh, is it? Okay.
But yeah, it's James Gandolfini's son is playing a younger version of him.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of interesting. I think it's called the Saints of New York, not New York, but like Newark.
Or Newark. Okay.
Yeah, I think Newark. I think is it. Yeah, because Newark's in New Jersey, right? Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Newark, Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, it's there. What was I rewatching?
No, because I didn't know they were even making
Oh,
a prequel, 'cause I didn't think it was that popular. I mean, I know it was a popular show, but I didn't know it aged that well, where people were like clamoring for more content from it.
I just remember that kind of leaving a bad taste in my mouth for like the last two, how the last season was split up into 2 seasons, and I felt like both of them were kind of uneven. But I guess if you're just like watching them straight through, like that it kind of settles. It's like anything where you get the whole shot of it. Like the bumps are flattened out throughout if you watch like 3 episodes in a row rather than one, wait a week and get the next one. Where like that last season was like, here's 6 episodes, 8 months later, here's the next 6 episodes. And then like you get to the conclusion, there's no conclusion. It's like, well, we got to write the ending ourselves. It's like, yeah, that's the point. It's like,
I've been watching the 3rd season of Twin Peaks. Just rewatching that again.
the Showtime one.
Yeah, see if I'm any smarter.
Yeah, I saw the. I was thinking about rewatching it at some point, but then the Red Letter Media guys just did like another retrospective on it, and so like I kind of got a lot of stuff there. But almost like I didn't want to watch it because like one of the things I like about like because like they brought up a lot of cool things like, oh, does that mean that? Does that mean that? And all these things that connect together. But like I don't really like to do that with David Lynch movies because like what I like about David Lynch movies, like there's no right answer. It's like whatever you want it to be, man. It's what it is. But it's cool when like things are like, oh, I wasn't even thinking of that. Like that kind of makes sense, but like don't ruin it for me.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I've been working on a lot of side projects and this really elaborate model I'm working on. And it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna pop this in, watch this, for just 6 hours.
This general unnerving in the background for a while.
Yeah, I never found that show to be super disturbing, except for the ones with Evil Cooper. That guy, you never think of Kyle MacLachlan as a menacing character, but whenever he's around, it's like a Quentin Tarantino thing. Like, okay, when's somebody going to die horribly by getting their face punched in, or what's going to happen when this guy's around? I forgot what a good job Laura Dern did in this too.
Yeah,
as the different, but yeah, we don't need to rediscuss this. But yeah, it's just like this is what I've been doing is like 6 hours a day of Twin Peaks.
Like when that year that came out, like it had some heavy hitters up against it when we were doing best of stuff. That was my show of the year, and like it beat out it beat out BoJack Horseman, which I've been like pretty much gave that my favorite show of the year of every year except for when that came out. But there was also like a bunch of other stuff that came out that year that was like, it was going up against some competition for my personal interest, and it still came out ahead. So
yeah.
Well, because I never saw more than the first couple episodes of it, and I kind of forgot about it, so I probably should finish watching it.
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, it's if you like David Lynch movies,
yeah, it's super weird as hell. It's funny. It's the
first thing.
It's horrifying. It's everything. It's David Lynch.
It's the first thing he'd done since Inland Empire, which was almost a decade before this. So it's like, yeah, you get your David Lynch fix. Yeah. Or he did something else after Inland Empire. I don't know if it was a movie, but he's always doing his music and meditation.
Well, he also does like a lot of like television commercials and music videos.
Yeah.
that you, that,
Well, I'm
you,
just
that you
talking-
basically never see, but he makes
Yeah.
them.
But for you, the European audience.
I like it recently he put it like he made an announcement on Twitter. It's like, I'm gonna stop doing the weather report, and then like everyone got mad. It's like the weather report will continue.
I think he likes to do things like that. I love the David Lynch, especially when it's the monkey just sitting there staring at the camera with its mouth open. David Lynch talking. It's a beautiful day here in Los Angeles. You know, just everything about that guy is amazing and fun.
Well, I like the juxtaposition there in the review of they were talking about where how many special effects are just like so bad, and it's like, is this intentional or is this just like David Lynch fucking around with Photoshop? But then you get to that one episode where it's like that weird origin episode with like the nuclear explosion and stuff.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, like so this is where they put the visual effects budget.
Well, it all had that same style of that was all. I mean, I don't know how he talked Showtime. Well, I do because it was the Twin Peaks, revival or whatever. But yeah, the amount of creative control he had for the look of that show was astounding. They were just like, yeah, here's $100 million check, go crazy, or whatever they paid for that. But
Well,
I think all his
although if you listen to some of the stuff, he's still upset about his time constraints.
oh yeah, I've seen that.
You don't get any fucking time to experiment. Got producers yelling at me to get on to the next one. It's like, we're making art here. It's like, I'm with
Yeah.
David Lynch.
Let's go wild. But I always like the special effects and all that stuff is what is like the Lynch aesthetic of. It's like, oh, this is jarring and weird. It's not convincing you, but it's so strange that it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go with this. Like, it doesn't have to look like a Marvel movie. It's like, well, whatever's going on here.
well, like sometimes I feel like, it's like, because, David Lynch got to start like doing everything in the movie. Like he still does his own sound designs for all his movies. So like every once in a while when something seems kind of janky, it feels like David Lynch just wants to figure it out for himself so that he can better like direct other people how to do better versions of these things. So he wants to have like some experience that he can relate to when he has to tell somebody else how to do something. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. That's just kind of the feeling I get from David Lynch.
Everything has a very particular style with him, especially in the Twin Peaks universe.
Yeah.
Everything has kind of a look and a feel and a vibe that it was amazing. It carried on how many years later? Was there like, because when did Twin Peaks end? 92?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we're bringing it back 20, 30
about
years
20 years
later.
later.
But yeah. So I've been rewatching that.
Well, Andrew,
Basically, to have something dense to watch.
Yeah.
Well, Turkey.
well, we need to get Andrew's opinions on Nixon and Alexander.
Yeah.
We'll start with Alexander first because that's the one I have, the least amount to talk about, I guess. As far as that movie goes, is totally fine with it. I liked it for the first hour and a half, but then after that, it dragged so much, I just started fast forwarding through it to get to the interesting parts. Because his troops are pissed at him, and he keeps going and going and trying to be like Heracles, or at least being sucked into his own image and his own glory, seemingly. I mean, Val Kilmer as the dad was good. I like the casting for everybody. Like, I didn't know the Hound was in it. That was kind of cool. But I mean, other than that, it's the best Jared Leto, Colin Farrell romance movie I've ever seen. I mean, also Rosario Dawson shows off her tits, so good for that one. And I mean, other than that, I'd say it's a solid 4 out of 5 stars. But I mean, that's probably just because of the tits. But still, no, I mean, it's a decent movie. It feels incomplete in a way, just from the Netflix cut, because I feel like there should be something more to it. Maybe that's because I fast forwarded the last 30 minutes. I don't know. I probably should have went back and actually watched it solidly, because I watch the death scene for Alexander and Jared Leto's character dying and him being more irate when he gets back to Babylon and shit. But it's well, okay, I mean, it's kind of just like this is the non-glory part of his life. This is his tail ending. Yeah, it was okay. I wouldn't watch it again. I mean, maybe if it was like a director's cut, they added more to it and there's more explanation. But
Yeah,
even then, like it's a hard sell.
yeah. The ultimate cut I got is it's a half hour longer, but it's not just. It's restructured, so it's not just like the theatrical cut with more scenes and extended scenes. It's a recut movie. So there's even stuff that's in the theatrical cut that he cuts out of the ultimate cut. It's like, well, if I get this, then I don't need that anymore. And so it's kind of interesting. So like the way he structured it for the ultimate cut, at least the way he talks about it, because I remember like having problems with Angelina Jolie. Like it's like we get it, he has mother issues, and so in this cut it has an intermission, so it's kind of like Ben-Hur. It's like the old epics. So like she's compartmentalized in the first part and compartmentalized in the second part. So like all our stuff is in like these like chunks, so it's not like spread out through the movie the way I remember the theatrical cut. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's just more time to breathe and more of like the breadth of the situation. But
I mean, because I get it, his mother is fucking crazy, but I don't think she needs as many scenes as she gets for being crazy.
well, I mean, you get Angelina Jolie, you know.
I know, but at the same time, it's just like, yes, I get it. She thinks he's born from the gods, he's Zeus' son, that she believes everybody's stolen his valor and his glory, and she wants him to act upon it so her family can regain greatness and no one look down upon anybody anymore. But at the same time, it's just like, I want her to shut the fuck up at some point, because I get tired of her scenes. It's like, I don't want to see any more of her. Like, I don't think she adds any more to the story. It just makes it more, I don't know, more tense for no reason.
So yeah, so like in the new cut, like it's her stuff is better used, and then there's just some stuff with more characters, but like you said, like you know, I don't. You said you don't watch it again, so I don't think you want to watch like the theatrical or the director's cut necessarily. But also, it wasn't a movie that seemed like necessarily worthy of killing his career. But
yeah, I mean,
it did.
As far as like all-time bombs, that's just it's a misunderstood movie. It's just totally fine. It's not great, but it's not bad.
No, but
So
like,
I don't know.
but also it also made no money, so like you can't. But it did well on DVD though, so that was and it did well overseas. But it was apparently an independent movie. Like even though Warner Brothers released it, apparently it was financed by some other group, and they spent like $120 million making it, and they made like $35 million in the U.S. So.
Well, I mean, that might be for more of the American public not wanting to watch epics for 3 hours or whatever in the theaters anymore, too, more than anything.
Yeah, I also forget when it got released, but it got murdered when it got released. I forget.
It was 2004.
Well, I forget like what it got released against.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, even if it got released against like the Avengers, do you think it really would have made like a lot more money versus like what it was touted to be and what the subject matter was?
Well, I think this movie is something like, hey, this because kind of like all of his movies, it's an Oscar bait movie, and if it got released during like that season, it was going to get trounced because like, even though I think there's good performances in there, I don't think anything in there except for like production stuff is worth an Oscar.
No, there's not really anything that stands out as being above and beyond, to be honest.
I mean,
special-
those like huge action scenes, like they're using a mixture of computer and practical effects. Like I think those hold up. Like those are impressive.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's like
This was kind of a time. This was like there was a 3-year period because I feel like this dovetails with Kingdom of Heaven, like where they were trying to release like epic movies about historical things. I think Kingdom of Heaven was a little more enjoyable to watch, though not as well regarded as this movie.
Well, that's a better movie, or
well, I mean, yeah, the director's cut.
movie, but it's not. It does not get good reviews.
No,
Kingdom of Heaven doesn't. Even though I enjoy it, it's like this is cool, but I enjoy it because of like medieval siege warfare, as much as and it was well envisioned.
Yeah.
I mean, probably the best scene for Alexander was probably the ending fight scene with the elephants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not that their other battles weren't good.
Well,
That
was the most surreal and interesting one. So
Yeah, that was the better one by far, just because, yeah, like you said, it's more surreal, it's more interesting, it has more going on for it than the other battles do, and it's actually a good set piece as far as visuals too. And actually, kind of like the way the camera moves, like it actually was like, oh yeah, this is very panicky because you're encountering these elephants you've talked about before. That people are like, they have these giant war machines. Like, shut up. It's like they'll just stomp them. Like,
oh man.
was like,
And that fucking shot where the horse rears up against the elephant that's rearing up, like that's fucking awesome.
yeah, I mean, there's stuff in this movie that's really good and should be applauded for what they did, but Oscar worthy, no. I mean, I had a better time watching World Trade Center than I had this movie, so. But that's saying something.
Well, is World Trade Center short? Is that the reason why?
It's 2 hours and 9 minutes. So yeah, it's not the 3 hours that the Alexander is. But no, it's not the length. It's not the runtime. I was more invested in the characters and the story.
Yeah, well, I mean that's 2 guys for 2 hours. So
yeah, plus some hangers on. No, Nixon was a better movie. I enjoyed that more than Alexander. It's still something I'll probably ever watch once. Not because I don't like it, it's because it's such a big fucking movie to grasp. As far as like all the things going on between Watergate, because you think that's going to be the whole fucking story the whole time, and it's not even that, which is surprising at the same time because it kind of covers some of Nixon's like rise political career and his marriage kind of falling apart, then not falling apart, then falling apart again. And I was really annoyed by his nickname for his wife, Buddy, because I really hated that. I really, really hated that. I was like, that is the laziest fucking nickname you could ever give anyone. Like, because my wife was like, maybe he's saying Bunny. I'm like, no, the subtitles every time say Buddy.
It's Buddy.
So, yeah, I know. That's why I was like, because we just got done watching the Canada Strike episode. So I was like, I'm not your buddy, friend. I'm not your friend, buddy. I'm not your buddy, pal. Like, it was like, wow, this is. Like, I wanted to see, like, them explain the nickname, but they never did. So I'm just like, oh, okay, it's his one friend. That's why it's Buddy. It had a lot of good parallels to today's political situation with Republicans and Democrats, as far as, like, the Republicans basically just trying to say that Democrats are liars, but offering no real proof and no real plan to do anything, just that their opponents are the ones that have no way to solve a problem, and they do, magically, even though they can't solve it. I mean, Nixon seems like a guy that doesn't want to be in a war and wants to try and get out of it. And like, I like how he talks to the protesters at the Lincoln Memorial. And I think that's a surreal moment for him. It maybe causes realization, but nothing ever comes of it as far as his character is concerned. Like, he doesn't have a life. He doesn't like change everything he's doing. Then,
well, I mean, that moment isn't that's manufactured moment, but like it.
Yeah. No, I'm assuming it wasn't.
But it's a good moment. But
yeah, it's a good moment. But I'm just it's not.
Because it never happened, it can't really inform what happens to the rest of his life. So.
No, that's true.
It was a good scene. I mean, it did talk about the realities.
Yeah.
Because like when he was talking to the one girl and she was like, you can't stop it, can you? And he was just like, no.
Yeah.
It's a machine. It doesn't stop. This is how this country is.
And I found that very honest and great about that film because, I mean, like I said, it's very much enlightening to today, even though, so some of the stuff didn't happen in it. It's all meant to fit a narrative.
But I think that's one of Oliver Stone's like unappreciated movies, and we like it here. So
yeah, I mean, I thought Anthony Hopkins' performance was really good. I like James Wood character. He seemed like a really good piece of shit.
James Wood's great at being a piece of shit.
No, he is. That's probably the go-to character, being a piece of shit asshole. So I mean, I know he kind of is real life too, but at the same time,
well, there's a great he's great in the Oliver Stone autobiography. He just weasels his way into the Salvador role because originally they wanted Martin Sheen for it. And then like James Woods got wind of that, and he's like, yeah, but isn't he like really Catholic and against swearing? And he's like, well, yeah, kind of. It's like, well, we fucking around here, or are we actually doing this fucking movie? And he cast him.
I could totally imagine James Woods saying that.
But no, I like the movie. I thought I had a lot of good things to say as far as like just how every president seems to face the same problems and never come out ahead. Like nobody's ever really different. Like Nixon's fascination with like naming everything Bay of Pigs.
Although Nixon actually, it's like one of the most, like, progressive is the right word, but a lot of the change that happened during his presidency is far-reaching and actually for good things. Like a lot of the EPA stuff and stuff like that happened. But also,
I explained that to you in the episode why that was, though, right?
What's that? Oh,
Why so many progressive things well, ostensibly progressive things happened under Nixon domestically.
Explain again. I'm not sure.
Well, because he didn't give a shit about domestic policy.
Oh yeah.
He was like, that's about as exciting as building shithouses in Peoria. No one cares about that. It's the Russians, it's the Soviets, it's the Vietnam, it's detente, it's all this. That's what was really important to Nixon.
But also, like, I don't know.
Domestic.
We had a dad on to when we were talking about the book, and also he's talking about, like, well, we actually had that stuff happened during the Nixon administration, but, like, we actually had, like, a Congress that was useful at the time and could get things done too. So just because good things happened during his presidency doesn't mean he had anything to do with them.
He didn't.
He also dropped more bombs than Roosevelt did during World War II. And the Congress rubber stamped that so they could get the EPA. It was also very seriously, he was also kicking around the idea of nuclear war in Vietnam.
Which is alluded to in the movie too, where he's like, "I'm thinking about dropping the big one," and everybody's like silent, and it's like, what's nuclear warfare going to do to a bunch of farmers? Like, it does. He's like, I know he's really talking about bombing Hanoi and, like, really getting in there and doing the dirty work that needs to be done to end it, but even that doesn't end it. So it's like you can really see that, like, nuking them, unless you nuke the whole fucking country, it's not going to solve anything.
No, I don't know, but, like, I don't know. Like, they had that stuff during the Korean War too, where, like, it was
MacArthur
like,
wanted to nuke shit.
Yeah, he wanted to create a line of cobalt blue across the Korean peninsula. That's what they called it. We're just going to drop a 9 of Luke's across this country and create a no man's land, and then they'll stop fighting.
That'll solve it. Yeah.
And he called it, like, we're going to make a line of cobalt blue.
And still, nobody's dropped enough nuclear bombs to see if you can actually destabilize the Earth's climate by doing it. So,
yeah.
I mean, not just by nuclear fallout.
Well, I mean, we set off enough nuclear bombs,
but not at the same time.
No, not at once. No.
That's the kicker.
We're working up to it.
I don't know. There's some people that can do, like, some soil work on, like, when meteorites hit the Earth. They can probably figure some of that shit out. So.
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously, like, it's different with, like, asteroids hitting, because that kicks up more dust and residue, and it sticks around for longer than nuclear fallout would, wouldn't it? Or is that essentially the same kind of reaction?
Depends on what you get. If you get air bursts, it doesn't do a lot. But if you go more towards ground bursts, that throws a lot of radioactive dirt and material up into the atmosphere. If you set them off in the upper atmosphere for EMP strikes, that doesn't do anything for the.
But if you're looking for, like, the kind of explosions, like, you need an asteroid to create that for what you're kind of talking about, simultaneous nuclear explosions. For the kind of pollution you're looking for, like, old time Earth when volcanoes were erupting constantly and just covering the Earth with ash, like that kind of shit.
Yeah. I mean, if you used all the nuclear weapons we had at once, I mean, the human race wouldn't even go extinct. It's just the Western Hemisphere would be a really fucked up place to live for a while. But it's not. We don't have the kind of potency now. I think back then they had a lot of, everything was multi-megaton, but most of those assets would have been destroyed before they were used. So that's why they were so big. That's why the Russians set off a 50 megaton bomb just because they could. It never made it to their arsenal. It just was like, we can do it.
That's always a good reason to play God. We could. I mean, not that it stops anybody else, mind you, but at the same time, it's comforting.
I mean, the 50s were a weird time, especially with nuclear weapons. You get shit like the Atomic Annie and the Davy Crockett, or just like these these mounted nuclear weapons that, like, soldiers are gonna just fire this at the enemy and then just, like, run away. It's like, no, we're not doing that.
Why not? Come on.
Well, hell, up until the 80s, up until the end of the fall of the Soviet Union, they had what were those planes called? They were American planes, but they were called like Victor 3 flights. and they were basically just one-way nuclear strikes into Moscow because they would fly so low they couldn't get picked up on the radar, and they were essentially suicide missions because they'd be dropping these bombs at low altitudes. So you could go up high afterwards, but then all the Russian SAM sites had hit you, and it was like, yeah, that was still a mission in the 90s. So yeah, they had a lot of weird concepts like that.
But yeah, that's another reason why the Korean War got as weird as it did, is because everyone was thinking, well, the next war is the last war. So then, like, they didn't really spend a whole lot of time concerned with, like, training armies and stuff like that. It's like, well, why do we need armies? We have nuclear weapons. And then when you had to, like, use your army instead of nuclear weapons, like, they didn't fend very well.
Yeah. Yeah, the Korean War was a development time, again, where it's like, oh, we got to go back to some of this stuff. Because flinging nuclear weapons at each other it's gonna be hard to bring in the crops next year if you've irradiated everything.
Well, I was watching something about Fukushima and their agriculture around that area recently in the last, like, ever since the reactor went up and stuff like that. And, like, the first couple of years, supposedly they had problems, and like 10% of produce, 15% of produce was bad or rejected. Because I was going over this one guy, he moved back to help his mom that was running a farm there at the time. And he had to crowdfund a nuclear spectrometer to, test the radioactivity of all his produce going out before he could sell it. And so he just has like this $200,000 machine in his basement doing this shit. And then it's like now it's like 1 or 2% every year, and they have to put like potassium in their rice fields in order to fucking eat up the radiation so it doesn't get into their rice, because it's like world-renowned rice. And he like sells it in big cities, and he's like, people at first were hesitant. Now they're a lot more accepting. And there was one guy that was doing like $10,000 pears out of there and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, the sugar content's 50% on these. I've had the liberty of tasting them, and they're really good. And it's like, well, for $10,000, I think pretty sure nobody else is really going to have the liberty to taste them. But cool that those nuclear sugar pears are $10,000 a piece.
Only Japan could find a way to turn profit into something like that.
Well, it was like it seemed like it was kind of going right like that before the whole thing, but it was talking about like, oh, Fukushima's running out of storage content for their water supply, so pretty soon they'll have to start dumping it in the ocean. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. Like, especially all the fishing they do in Japan. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Well, I mean, the Russians dumped how many nuclear reactors in the ocean? Fall of the Soviet Union.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I knew somebody probably did it, but I didn't know Russians did it on like a huge scale or anything. Jesus.
Yeah, when the Soviet Union was falling apart, they knew there was no way. Then they had an aging fleet of nuclear submarines. They didn't have like good stuff, and they had a lot of other weird nuclear stuff. But they're like, we can't maintain these submarines. We're not gonna have any money. What can we do with them? Well, you can take them out to the Coral Sea and out the tip of Japan and scuttle them. It's like, yeah, but won't we be held accountable for that? Well, no, the Soviet Union's going to dissolve. You can hold the Soviet Union responsible. They don't exist anymore. Good idea. So you just had like skeleton crews driving these nuclear submarines out there and just blowing the scuttling charges. Guys would pick them up. Yeah, I forget how many they did. Nobody knows, but they did a lot of them.
But also the ocean is pretty good at like cleaning up nuclear waste.
Yeah, we've lost a few too. So,
well, I mean, I know the ocean itself like is good at cleaning up stuff, because they were talking about my professor in college was talking about the Exxon oil spill, and it's like, oh yeah, we actually hurt the environment more by doing that. We just cleaned it up faster than the environment would have. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like a huge oil spill, and your argument is just to leave it there. I'm like, fine, just leave it. Like, isn't that going to hurt it? No, it's actually fine. The ocean will actually clean it better than we can, and it will kill less things. And I was like, oh, that's fucking sad, and also at the same time. It's like all those humans cleaning up all that shit for such a long time, and Exxon being held accountable, and really could have just shoulder shrugged and walked away.
Well, I think at that time the big problem was like they were counteracting the oil with chemicals, and it's like, you're just trading one thing for the other here.
They were killing all the fish with the chemicals to get rid of the oil. Wait a minute.
Now they have better methods, but also they've had to deal with much larger spills since then. So
Yeah, they're getting better at it. Everything's fun.
I mean, they're better at it. It doesn't make but like I think Kevin Costner owns a company that does like oil cleanup spills, and like he made a fortune off of like that Deepwater Horizon thing. So.
Well, it's nice to know somebody made a profit off of cleaning up oil spills.
Or maybe it's a non-profit thing. I'm not sure, but yeah, he owns it. So.
Oh, that was more just like, well, it's nice that.
I remember there was like a weird thing where it's like, basically like someone like found out a method where you could basically just like the simplest version. There's probably a more industrial version. You can basically just take human hair, shove it in a pantyhose, and just throw it in the ocean, and then it'll just gather up as much oil as anything can. And you just like drag it out and throw it in a trash can or whatever and set it on fire. I don't know.
I can get the oil out of that and refine it.
Yeah.
There was I forget what they make out of it, but something used more in the third world than here. But it's a kind of oily fuel. Yeah, you can make $1 off anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's too much market for just about anything anymore. I mean. Not that, I mean, somebody was talking about pelts the other day and how cheap they are. It's like you can't even be a professional fur trapper anymore because you won't make any money unless you literally live next to the place that, you can sell the furs to for a set price. And it was like, why is that such a huge deal? Like, why should anybody care about that? It's like, oh no, people can't go out and skin animals for money anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the last fur coat I bought, though, they're still pretty expensive.
Well, yeah, those, pretty. Because he was talking about some mountain lion coat that was like, oh, it's $2,500, and I was like, that seems like that should be more than $2,500, but at the same time, I guess that seems right. I don't know.
Oh, also, like, aren't they trying to get rid of mountain lions?
Well, I don't know because somebody was talking about like trapping coyotes and shit like that in Iowa now. Because apparently, like, you can do that now, and they were talking about how many you can trap limit wise and what you do with them. Because used to be you had to release them and shit like that if you caught them, and they're like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna release no fucking coyote. And it was like, well, you fucking caught it. What the fuck do you think you're gonna do with it? Like, I thought I was gonna have a new friend. That's what I thought I was gonna do.
I always wanted one of those coats, like those giant great coats made out of wolf pelts. Like, that stuff. I still think that stuff's cool. I know you can get sable brushes again.
Oh, you can.
That's coming back. Yeah, it's hard. It's expensive, but you can get them. Because for a while here, they were banned. There's the only country that banned them was us. And all the synthetic stuff sucks. So, but now you can get sable brushes again. But sables are kind of cute too. You ever seen one? They act like a cat.
Well, because I know some people use horsehair brushes and stuff like that too, but I don't know if it actually sells them mass produced. Horsehair brushes, just either red sable or synthetic. And I think I have some Winsor Newtons, but I think those are synthetic still. I don't remember if they're actually red sable or not.
Kowalski sable.
So we all saw Psycho Gorman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nathan, what did you think of Psycho Gorman?
Well, I mean, I remember I liked the Canadian horror movie The Gate.
Yeah.
From the 80s, and this was kind of in the genre of it was way worse than that. But this was like a movie that was having fun with movies from the 80s and 90s that were like this.
Yeah.
Where it's like over the top, gross out violence, interstitial with dialogue that's funny. I will say I do think the first hour of this movie is better than the last, except for the end. It kind of redeems itself at the end because it gets kind of repetitive and it's like, oh, I'm waiting for the
here's the joke, and then here's the joke again. But
yeah, I'm waiting for new jokes. It's like because it was started off so strong. And then it ended like towards the middle and end. It was like, okay, this is getting kind of redundant.
I
but yeah, it's kind of a genre of movies that I don't really watch a lot. But it's like, oh, I know what they're doing.
Well, I said it was like Hellraiser meets the Goonies.
Yeah.
Because I can't disagree with that assessment.
And the kids were fun.
The funny thing, so there's a guy named Psycho Gorman who's apparently implanted on Earth because he was a terrible being, and then this girl basically gets this like Jim that she has control of him, and then she's an awful person.
Yeah, she's not like a quirky little girl who's like, I can turn this into good. It's like, no, she's mean.
Which is that's kind of an interesting twist, and also it's like it's kind of interesting. Is at first like the parents seem like they're like, oh, they're the cool parents, like they're understanding, and like, oh, they're awful parents.
Yeah, they're dissociated,
And they're dumb too. And it's like it just keeps like they make these very specific choices where they're just like being an anti-movie where like at the end of the movie nobody learns anything and just stuff happens.
Yeah,
even though there's kind of a heartfelt thing at the ending where with like the little girl, she'll never say that she's like sorry or wrong, but she'll use Morse code or whatever by tapping to say it.
well, it's like how Gorman changes his arc, because instead of using horror and darkness to destroy the universe, he's going to use like unity and love.
Yeah.
We're going to destroy the universe.
Yeah, but I'll do it with unity and love.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
The unity and love will power his destruction of the universe.
Which is kind of like a rehash of the dialogue throughout the whole movie with the kids like trying to talk normally to him, and he's like, well, it would have been better if we, slaughtered them, or, it was always, what character he's going to be, but it's like, yeah, he never really changes.
I thought there was a couple of really funny standout moments in it, like when the dad cooks dinner with the microwave or whatever, and then like the mom goes in to clean up the dishes, and she like, this is a fucking like murder scene in the microwave. What the hell did you do? And he was like, you're welcome. And just like whispers it. I thought that was pretty good. I don't know who came up with that. But also just like the fucking like zombie cop scene where he just like writes a fucking Valentine to the girl and it's like, kill me, and then she's like, that's not funny.
And he just permanently has a gun in his hand.
Yeah, that's guy with a gun hand. Yeah. But he can't get it to his own head for some reason.
And he'll just errantly fire the gun randomly while they're walking in the woods. Like, it's time to hang out.
So yeah, that was a real. I like the movie a lot. Like, it's not a good movie. It like has a lot of flaws as far as like.
Man, as a movie you could predict, that's not one of them.
No.
That's what I like about it. I cannot predict that movie.
That's true.
Sometimes unpredictable is a welcoming thing, but yeah, it's not necessarily. Like, I'd say like Turbo Kid. I put it out like Turbo Kid's a better movie and is also extremely violent and weird. Like, Turbo Kid's probably a better movie, but like I do like the weird aesthetics of this movie. And that weird council, just the weird like Muppets. There's just a guy with a brain in a jar and stuff like that, and then the little like after credit sequence is like, oh, who's gonna kill themselves first? And that one.
Oh yeah. I like how the good people are like trying to plot their own death. Like, well, we gotta kill ourselves. How are we gonna do it? It's like, okay.
No, I mean, probably the only character like I thought was too over the top for me was Little Girl, just because she always like seemed to get her way and was such a dick half the time. Because like the rest of the family seemed to like let her do whatever she wanted, and she didn't really seem to learn anything. But I guess that wasn't really the point of the movie anyway.
Well, I thought the thing with her is like in some ways she's the real villain of the movie, which is absurd.
Yeah, she kind of, because I thought she was like, oh, she's this quirky foil for this, for Psycho Gorman. It's like, it's kind of like, oh, I have my own. It's like Terminator 2. It's like, I have my own Terminator, but I'm going to go a totally different way with it. And then it becomes like, oh, she's just a fucking evil person. She's a bad person, and she doesn't know she's bad. Like, he knows. He's like, I'm here to destroy the universe. And she's just like kind of eccentric at first, but it's like, oh, no, she's just as bad as him. She doesn't have all the power yet. And so it was fun. I mean, it was funny.
I think she does a really good job, but that's kind of a hard role to play. It's like, I'm an awful person, and then like she's like, it still manages to be charming with it. Even.
Well, you don't want to believe like just little girls are evil.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the antithesis of how we view things. So that was fun.
She turns that one kid into just a weird giant brain, and then just like nobody bats an eye at it. It's like,
Yeah.
should we change him back? It's like, no, we're move forward. We're done with it.
Yeah, this is over. She just pets him occasionally, pets the pulsating brain. Oh, yeah, but this was. I just took it as an homage to other movies, some of which I recognized, some of them I didn't.
Yeah, I couldn't necessarily pick out like what era they were going for because I don't think anybody has a cell phone. But there is a flat screen TV, but it's like one of those early ones, like those Sony Vega 300-pound ones.
Yeah.
That's there. So I think this is supposed to be like 90s-esque, but it's trying to go for more of an 80s vibe, especially with like the music choices and it's kind of the styling. But
yeah, it has an 80s production value and style, but with like the 90s smart ass fuck everything. So it's kind of like I consider it an 80s 90s mashup of horror films.
Also, I imagine it had to have a limited production, so they probably did well with what they had.
Yeah, I mean this was one of the COVID casualties, where it was or maybe it isn't. It's actually something that more people have seen.
Probably
because it was. I remember
it's not like there's there's nobody in the cast that's recognizable. So
no, half these people don't have any credits on IMDb.
But like you've both seen the movie that this guy did before, which is The Void.
Yeah.
So, which was just a Canadian like kind of horror sci-fi movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the special effects in that one are actually really good too. So I mean,
that's a good movie at generating dread. It just gets repetitive after a while. It's like, okay, die already, fuck. But the Void, the first 45 minutes of it is like, wow, this is fucking weird. So, but I knew this was like a horror comedy. So,
yeah, that just popped up on my Twitter feed one day, and then I made sure to like keep track of it, and get it when it came out because it was like Patrick Klepek, who does like video game reviews, but he also does kind of horror movies podcasts on the side, and then like he put something out about it, and then Patton also retweeted him, and then it was like, okay, this is getting around a bit. So,
yep, it's fun.
It's fun. It's gross. It's horrifying. It's everything.
Yeah.
Wonder if they'll get a sequel.
I'm not sure if they'd want to just. I'm not sure like what there is to like go back to with that. Like, what do they need to do again, or what extended story you do with that? But it's in that 80s genre, so there's plenty of franchises from the 80s that didn't deserve a second movie, and they got 6 instead.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't necessarily follow the family, I guess, but maybe it could follow Psycho Gorman and like learning what he used or using what he learned from the family and destroying the world, basically. Like that might be fun to watch, but like, at the same time, like it didn't seem like maybe the budget would really match up with doing that. So, I mean,
we'll see. I don't know the director's stuff, but I don't necessarily see him like this being a cash cow for him. Like he'll probably find something else to do.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess I just kind of wanted to see more with that movie at some point, maybe, or at least something similar vein.
Or that guy will just make another unexpected movie. Or if you haven't seen Turbo Kid, watch Turbo Kid.
Well, I've seen Turbo Kid too. That was good.
Okay.
Because that came out a couple of years ago, didn't it?
Yeah, that came out a while ago.
No, because the way I explained it to somebody that recommended The Void to me and had me watch it was that this is kind of like E.T. with gore. Because it's just basically like a special friend kids movie, but with like a lot of violence and bad things in it. I mean, I didn't come up with. I think your comparison's way more apt than mine because mine's not very specific, but at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, that does work really well. Sorry.
Well, it was a good movie though. It was fun.
Yeah. Wish there was more movies like it.
Yeah, well, there will be.
Well, I mean, it's just like Conlon talked about, and I didn't even think about when I was watching it, like how you can predict most of the fucking movies you see, like the next scene or what the hell their ending is going to be, because nobody has an imagination anymore. Everything's been done a million times.
Well, they know it makes money, and so unexpected things don't necessarily make money.
I guess that too. But, well, I mean, either way, it's just nice to see something refreshing and actually, basically, new and creative and not really done before in a way.
You can't fast forward this movie, not because you're gonna lose your place, but because you're gonna like miss something that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I wish like some of the movie studios would like actually try a risk and like actually make movies like this.
No,
Like
I
on a
mean,
higher budget.
I don't know that. See, I don't know, that's kind of just the divide between movies and television nowadays. Like, you're gonna get something more interesting in a television space than you are in the movie space, especially now. So, like, who the fuck knows what's going on in the movie space now? So, till COVID lets up.
Yeah.
Well, I know the new Army of the Dead trailer came out, or the teaser trailer, and that looked interesting. Well, I mean, it just looks like a fun action movie.
I hope. I didn't get anything out of that. I mean, Sucker Punch looked like a fun movie, and that was apparently terrible. So, the premise seems fun. I always trust Zack Snyder with visual stuff. I just don't trust him with anything script wise.
Well, I mean, because the whole like, hey, we're gonna steal a bunch of money from a casino in a zombie apocalypse doesn't make a lot of sense practically. But I figured maybe there's some good explanation for it, but maybe not.
There's some stuff I read about it made it seem like these zombie outbreaks, like it's not like apocalyptical outbreaks. It's just like, yeah, these happen. And so why this zombie outbreak is happening in Vegas, they take the opportunity to rob Vegas. And apparently there would be a safe zone to escape to with the money. That would make more sense than the world's ending. Let's rob a bank with something that is completely worthless.
Well, because I pretty much thought there must be a safe zone where you can use the money, because otherwise, why the fuck would you risk all that shit to, literally buy or get a bunch of shit that's worthless after that? You can't eat it. You can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be. I mean, plus it's free for the most part. As long as you own Netflix, it's basically free. So,
is that
I mean,
Netflix? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why I'm more up on it. If it was just a movie theatrical release, I might not care that much. But since it's Netflix, it's like, oh, okay, I can just watch it. It's not a big deal.
Well, when's that getting released then?
May,
Okay.
like 15th or 21st, something like that.
So you get the Snyder Cut Justice League, and then you get Army of the Dead a few months later.
I don't know why everybody cares that much about the Snyder Cut Justice League. Like, it's going to be the same shitty movie with a few twists. That's
I think the only thing that's add to it now is that there's been like a huge backlash versus Joss Whedon since that movie came out, and there's been a lot of sympathy toward, obviously so, towards Zack Snyder, and so I just think people are like want to give some Zack Snyder's attaboys for following through with this. Like, there's no reason to do the Snyder Cut, and they're doing it. So like, there's something, that's kind of cool, but it's probably not gonna be a better movie. It's just gonna be a longer, darker movie. Although I do like that, like the trailer I've seen for it, like there's nothing I recognized from the original version of Justice League in that trailer. So that's kind of interesting.
I guess I didn't pay much attention to the trailer, to be honest.
But that also could be like Justice League was so forgettable that I don't recognize anything from either trailer.
Well, I mean, it's just something where I can't remember how much the film was in the can before he had to exit because his
Most of
daughter
it, I believe.
So I mean, it's just like, well, because I know Joss Whedon filmed new scenes and added some more stuff that wasn't there before, but I didn't think it was enough to really make.
I also like changed the whole visual direction and stuff of it. Cause, like,
he did that.
Yeah, he made it a lot more brighter and stuff like that. Because if you look at like the Batman versus Superman, like that aesthetic was going to carry forward, and then Joss Whedon kind of lighten it up a bit, put some more jokes in there, try to make it more fun, and then it just it didn't help.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think they need to replicate a Marvel movie exactly, because they need to make their own brand. But yeah, I don't know what that is still, because they only have like one or two good movies, and they didn't even learn from those.
No.
So I mean, they didn't learn from Wonder Woman at all.
Yeah, we thought like Wonder Woman's like that was the best one they did, and then you give Patty Jenkins full control on the second movie, and then and then everyone hates that movie. I don't
Yeah.
hate that movie, but you look at the critical reception, and it's like resounding hate for that movie. Like, this is the worst movie of the year. It's like, well, I didn't really get that, but okay. I mean, like everyone's argument's like, oh yeah, I guess that is terrible. But I had a fine time watching that. But also, I could watch it at home, and movies are predictable, so you're like, well, let's fast forward this a little bit, and so I could kind of skip over the shitty parts.
Yeah, I mean the movie could have been like an hour shorter and probably
Yeah.
been better. But yeah, I guess I don't necessarily blame Patty Jenkins completely, but at the same time,
Well, she
She
wrote
definitely-
it. She didn't write the first one. She wrote the second one. That's where that's where the blame comes in.
well, because I know her name was on the screenwriting credit, but I didn't know how much of it she actually wrote.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
don't
why-
know. So
So that's why I was just like, well, in Hollywood, it's always one person writes the scripts and 5 other people change it. Who knows what actually was there, but that was original. So I mean, it's just like I didn't know how much of the script was blamed on her, because I wouldn't figure she would write Kristen Wiig's character, because that just seems like a trope that should be dead by now. But maybe she actually likes that. I don't know. But either way, I mean, it's just like her getting.
She wrote it in all the dressing scenes, because that's what women want. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, because like literally, it's,
I want to give her credit because I know her to be a good director, and
yeah.
there's not a whole lot of women directors out there that get to make $100 million movies, and so
And this doesn't help that, unfortunately, because I mean,
No.
not that. I think
and
other
it's like
studios-
it's like fine for a woman to like fail at making a movie, but you just know like somewhere some studio executives like, well, you can't give women movies, like they're just not going to make money, and like even though that makes no sense, you just know they're just going to think that, they're just not going to say it. It's just going to be
Yeah.
a thought in the back of their mind that
And that's what I was saying. It's like you're just gonna have all those people. They're like, no, you can't do it now because that person failed, and it's not even remotely connected. Not every female director is gonna write the script, and not every female director has the same vision or what she wants to do with it, basically. So I mean, I don't know. Like I'm interested to see if she still remains on the helm for the next one, if there is gonna be a next one anytime in the near future, which I'm assuming there will be. But I mean, I think they're gonna wait for a little while and maybe trot out some other people like Aquaman again, obviously, and maybe like another DC hero that wants a movie.
We put this out on the internet that you have this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They remodeled Grayson's store,
Oh,
so now he has the map of the
New Jersey.
New Jersey Turnpike. That's what
yeah.
is that? 6 feet tall by 3 feet wide.
Something like
Okay, we'll have to figure out how to hang that up.
Was your manager like, you actually want this?
So how'd you get that? What did they ask you if you wanted it?
well, they told me to go throw it away. I was like, well, I'm gonna keep it.
Oh, okay, even better.
Salvage rights.
Oh,
it's like
So,
everyone always had those friends who like they worked at the movie theater and they like would throw out those stand-ups they put out. It's like, no, that's kind of cool, you'll keep that, and then you just end up throwing it away after a while.
yeah. No, I have to figure out how to throw it away.
Oh
I still have a movie poster from The Time Machine, and I can't remember what the hell other movie I fucking have a poster. I think it was like The Mummy Returns or something like that. I have a movie poster from. So
We got more.
Too.
The two guys surfing.
Real.
All right.
All right.
Well, good. We'll have to figure out how to anchor those to the wall to hide the holes you punched in it. Oh. Oh yeah. I'm gonna fix that later. Oh.
So we watched a bunch of movies this week.
Yes.
We decided to speed up the Oliver Stone catalog.
Yeah.
So
it was becoming a short, ponderous list.
So I watched. So weirdly, all these movies start with W.
Okay. Well, I didn't think of that. Yeah.
So I watched Wall Street 2, Money. Oh, I guess it's just Wall Street. Money Never Sleeps, but I always refer to it as Wall Street 2. Which, well, I had very low expectations, so this was like way better than I thought it would be.
Oh, okay.
Frank Langella's in it. He's pretty good. Like, what's weird about his characters? Like, so this was the whole conception for this movie was done before the 2008 collapse, but then they were like in production basically during the collapse.
Okay.
And so a lot of things got changed around to try to take advantage of that. So the movie kind of ends up being weird because and having nothing to say. Uh, but it's interesting. Like Shia LaBeouf's character is like he's like a stockbroker, but he has like this whole like back end thing about clean energy, and so he's like trying to get this like nonprofit like or it's probably for profit company that's doing fusion reactors, and like he's trying to get money to them because like that's the future, and so he's always trying to like funnel money back to them. And but this is 2010, so it's like kind of interesting. It's like, so I feel like only like fusion reactors were like really like, oh, we're getting it done like 5 years ago, but it's still like taking forever because that shit's wildly complicated. So
Yeah, and you're only talking about like the forces involved in making the sun work. So
yeah.
time with that.
So there ends up being like the company he works for basically James Brolin's character like fucks them over when they're having like a meeting with like the chairman of the Fed, and he's basically having to sell out his company, and then like James Brolin just like fucks him over, and then Frank Langella does the one thing that no stockbroker ever does, gets sad about the money he lost and kills himself by jumping in front of a train.
Yeah.
It's like that'll never happen. And then there's like a fucking wild line later on when Gordon Gekko shows up and is like, yeah, that man he took his life in his own hands. Like he was brave to kill himself for the mistakes he made. It's like something like that. There's a lot of good one-liners in this movie I didn't expect. It's not necessarily a great movie, but a lot of like, oh, there's some good performances, there's some good one-liners. There's a weirdly happy ending. They deal with the subprime mortgage collapse like kind of in the middle of the movie, but doesn't really add anything to it. But the movie's a lot better than I thought, and it's on Amazon Prime, so the cast is pretty good, but it's not it's not the best casting he's ever did. But and he also didn't write this one, but like I said, there's some good one-liners in there. Some interesting trivia where it's like Shia LaBeouf didn't like a line because he thought it was too repetitive, because he said like you should look at yourself in the mirror and see yourself or something like that. That's the line, and apparently like LaBeouf wanted to like just shorten it up to be like you should look yourself in the mirror or something like that, and then like no, or you should see yourself, and then like no, Oliver Stone said no, I like the word mirror. I wrote Scarface. Say the fucking lines.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and then Michael Douglas is good as Gordon Gekko. There's like he has a weird arc to him where it's like his daughter's like, oh, he'll never change, and then like, I think he's changing, and then he doesn't change, but then he does change, and it's like, why are you giving Gordon Gekko the redemptive arc? And also the villain arc, but like James Brolin's like actually the worst villain overall. There's fun stuff where like, and also like Gordon Gekko gets put in jail, for 8 years, but it wasn't actually about the insider trading. It was like fraud. It was for some other reason he got put in jail. And then there's the trailer. It was in the trailer, but there's a funny moment where it starts off and it's like all the things he would have in his pockets that they're giving back to him when he gets out of jail. It's just like all the shit from the 80s, and it's like one mobile phone. It's like the giant brick phone. And then he gets out of jail, and there's like all these like thugs and people that are like getting picked up by limos and stuff like that, and then like nobody comes to pick him up. So.
Was this the one where Donald Trump was in it?
He was cut out of it.
He was cut out of it. Okay.
Trivia said he was cut out of it.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. Yeah, it's not necessarily worth it, but it's not a complete piece of shit that I was kind of expecting. So That's Wall Street. Money never sleeps.
Oh, I watched W. The
Oh yeah, we should have started with you because that one actually came out next after Alexander, right? Or did World Trade Center come first?
It's 2008. So.
Yeah, mine was 2010.
Oh, okay.
I
But
swear
yeah.
World Trade Center was before 2010, but yeah, I don't know what year.
Oh, anyways.
Yeah, so I watched W, which was Oliver Stone's biopic, released while he was still president, by the way. Last year
There's
was
a lot of weird shit like that. Remember That's My Bush came out
Yeah.
when he was still president?
Yep, that started with it was like 6 months into his presidency, and then 9/11 happened, and no one watched it anymore.
Oh, was it?
Just
I thought that was after 9/11. Oh well. Anyways.
let me look real quick. But
No,
I was
it
pretty.
doesn't.
Yeah, I actually am curious now too. It wasn't very good.
No.
Because it was, I remember like the guys from South Park did it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, May 23rd, 2001.
Huh.
Ran from April 4th to May 23rd, 2001. I thought it ran longer than that.
That's bizarre. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it is.
I just totally just assumed that was post 9/11.
I thought it was. I thought it was canceled because of 9/11 because it wasn't fun. But this was Oliver Stone's bio. This is another one he didn't write. And this was his pickup movie after Pinkville got canceled, which was the one about the My Lai massacre.
Oh.
And that's the one that like Bruce Willis just walked away from the production, like I'm not doing it. And then the whole thing fell apart. So he picked this up. This was written by someone else. It was supposed to. Christian Bale was supposed to play George W. Bush.
Huh.
And they even did a lot of prosthetics and accent work with him. And then he was like, nope, not doing it. So they got Josh Brolin at the last.
So is that interesting that he plays Dick Cheney, right, in Vice?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, I don't know why he left. I just know that's the trivia around the movie.
Yeah.
And Josh Brolin gave an excellent performance in this.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a weird. Everyone thought, much like Nixon, is like, oh, this is going to be an assassination of George W. Bush, but it basically showed a guy who had a very troubled relationship with his father, and kind of fell into power after he's quit drinking and became a born again Christian and all that, and his parents never believed in him. I mean, I don't know how much of this is true. Like, you never know, but because you listen to the commentary track, and of course, Stone asserts that like a lot of this stuff is true, and the stuff that's synthesized is like, well, we did this for the sake of the movie, but and he had Richard Dreyfuss as Dick Cheney, and it's Oliver Stone's favorite actor to work with, and Richard Dreyfuss's favorite director to work with. They loved each other during the making of this movie, and they went around on talk shows and shit on each other for almost a year and a half afterwards. They apparently had a good time. I don't know why either, but they didn't like each other. And I forgot Thandie Newton played Condoleezza Rice.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then Toby Jones was the guy who played Karl Rove. I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of very famous actors that show up in this for 5 minutes. It's not a home run of a movie because it doesn't seem like an Oliver Stone movie. It just seems like a quirky movie with a good cast that's kind of not what you expected. But what it is isn't great either. The performances are good, but the story itself is kind of a little empty.
Yeah.
And then when I found out, I was like, oh, he didn't write this. I was like, oh, okay. And this was kind of a pickup project for, hey, sorry you got screwed out of your My Lai movie, which I'm sure would have been fun for everyone. So, yeah, it did not make a lot of money, because it came out against The Secret Life of Bees and Beverly Hills Chihuahua. It finished behind both of those. I love it, the box office blitz thing now, where it shows the release. but like I said, it's good performances. James Cromwell, Josh Brolin, Elizabeth Banks.
For my
They'll
movie,
do.
I think I said James Brolin. I meant Josh Brolin for Wall Street.
Oh,
Journey
yeah.
Sleeps. He's the bad
Oh,
guy.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I confused them because they're father and son.
And they look a lot alike too. But yeah, so that's it was an okay movie. It wasn't, Vice was a better movie. Vice is a darker movie.
Yeah,
Tries to be funny, but it's not.
it's directed by a comedian.
By a comedian, but the topic, the subject matter is so weird that it doesn't. Oh yeah, Jeffrey Wright played Colin Powell in W2. I forgot about
Jesus
that.
Christ, that is a great cast.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a good cast. It was not, and it was not the best movie, but it just seemed very quick, and I think it was filmed in 26 days. So the whole thing just seemed to kind of flow together very quickly. I think they wanted to get it out before Bush was out of office.
Yeah,
And again, it wasn't this hit piece on Bush or his policies. It was just about a troubled man and his relationship with his dad. Of course, weirdly enough, George Bush and Oliver Stone both started at Yale the same year. Only George Bush graduated. And Oliver Stone went to fight in Vietnam. So. And one guy became a great filmmaker, and the other guy just started two of the biggest illegal wars in U.S. history. Weird. That's my Bush argument when I get people really I try to wrap people around the axle politically when they get talking about, I'm so glad Trump's gone. It's like, well, George W. Bush did a lot more damage to this country than Donald Trump. No, that's not true. It's like, yeah, it is. I know he had he had a quick rehabilitation after Trump became president because he looked like, a benevolent sovereign compared to Trump. But remember, he started two fucking wars started one war under false pretenses and never cared about the other one and wasted trillions of dollars and thousands of lives. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, Trump said mean things on Twitter. It's like, yeah, okay. I know, I get it. Just because George W. Bush and the Obamas hang out doesn't mean he was a good guy. Yeah, I like to pull that on people to really piss them off. What are you saying? Like, why did you like Bush when he was president? Okay,
are you a Trump supporter? It's like, no, they're all awful.
Yeah. But yeah. So this movie was okay. You don't need to watch it. Watch Vice. That's actually a more interesting. There's like 10 minutes of George W. Bush in it, played by Sam Rockwell, I think, which was actually. It's a more interesting. This movie's trying to be a character study that doesn't ever quite work out.
Yeah.
It's like because all Bush's failures were well known to anyone who watched the news, and his troubled college career and his troubled. Stuff after that, but it doesn't really it doesn't really hang together well. It's a lot of great performances, but just kind of an unsatisfying movie. So that's all I got to say about it.
Andrew, you got World Trade Center?
Yes, I looked up the chronology and it came out before your guys' movies, so it's 2006.
Okay. So that's the first one after Alexander.
Yep. It was a good movie. I liked it. I mean, as far as like the pacing and subject matter, because I've never watched a trailer for it because I knew, it's about the World Trade Center attacks and about policemen and firemen and stuff. So fine. I figured it had actually more rescue part to it. It was just like immediately, pretty much like, hey, we got there, and then the building collapses, and so fine. That's not anything I hate about it or anything, but at the same time, it gets to the end of the movie because my wife's watching it with me and. It gets to the credits, like acknowledging all the policemen that died. It's like there's 10 times the amount of firemen died than policemen, but they don't acknowledge any of those people. It was like, oh, okay, just focus on the 34 cops that died, not the 343 firefighters that died. Nice one, Oliver Stone, you dick.
Were the characters in the movie cops or were they firefighters?
They're all cops. They're all cops.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, it's just like they talked about firefighters and they're like, hey, there's firefighters around. And it talked about all the service people, like Port Authority people, cops, firefighters, EMTs, and that lost their lives. But then it like does the whole like scrolling name thing, but it doesn't do anything about the firefighters. It's like, so why only cops? Like, why the hell does that like people that matter in this? It's like far fewer cops died than fucking firefighters.
Maybe this is, I know it's called World Trade Center, but maybe it's focused on the cops because I know like around the same time you have Rescue Me is out, and I know they kind of did a lot of 9/11 firefighter stuff.
Yeah,
even though that was that. Yeah, that was yeah. That was showing.
No, I mean,
was that about New York firefighters and rescue?
Yeah,
okay.
New York.
Because I associate Dennis Leary with Boston, so I couldn't remember. It's like, wait, are they in New York in that show? I can't remember. Anyways,
I also like how it was the secret origin story of the Punisher. I mean, I don't know why you call him Christopher in the whole movie. He's definitely Frank. I don't know why they couldn't just say his real name, probably for witness protection reasons. But no, it was the movie. I knew where it was going in wise because, like, hey, the two biggest actors in this movie are definitely going to live, right? Because they're not going to kill one of them, and they didn't.
This is based on a real story, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, like
those two guys are real, aren't they?
Yeah, the two people they're playing are the 18th and 19th persons rescued out of the rubble out of 20.
Okay.
So not a high number, but at the same time, from the way it looked as far as things collapsing and stuff, I'm surprised they even got 20 out. Because I didn't know what to expect of it because I didn't really watch a lot of news stories about getting people out necessarily, just like the aftermath of it and us declaring war on people and shit. I didn't realize how hard it would fucking be to like get people out of that because I figured it would be like involving heavy equipment or like cutting tools and shit. But like the way it looks like they're just crawling through like mole tunnels and just like basically getting into space like there's no room to operate, but they have like jaws of life and all this other stuff to get people out, and then got them out on stretchers just fine. And it's like that's really fucking cool. That's really awesome that they're able to do that. And I didn't know exactly what went into it, so it's really nice that some people are able to be saved and stuff. And the rescue effort that was seemingly because like the whole I'm assuming the Marine part, the character played by
Michael Pena.
No, Marine.
No, there's a guy who's like a Marine who like is like, I'm gonna go help out, right? Isn't that it? It's been a while.
He just like basically works in an office building, but he just uses military, fatigue.
Oh, Michael Shannon.
Yeah, Michael Shannon.
Okay.
And so I didn't know if that part was necessarily true.
I want to say that guy's made up, but I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've looked up trivia for the movie.
Nope, it's real. He's real.
Okay.
Oh, okay. But I mean, like the whole, I didn't really like Nick Cage's family. Like they all seemed like, I guess I don't really know anybody that's been through a traumatic event like that and know how people would really react. But like his son kept bothering him with like if they're gonna be here for his birthday or not. It's like, shut up about your fucking birthday. No one gives a shit. And like fucking everybody just giving her shit about not caring, and it's like, oh, okay. Like I didn't really like the family aspect at all, but at the same time, I know they had to focus on something away from the characters because laying in rubble can only get so interesting for 2 hours. But yeah, I mean, I was really surprised Michael Pena's character didn't die because I thought at one point he was going to with the whole Jesus water bottle thing. But yeah, it was an okay movie. I wouldn't say it's like it's something I'd ever watch again or I'd recommend. But
it's a lot better than I thought. But that was also like that was at the United '98 movie. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I had I don't want to see that movie, and then like I ended up watching it and I was like, fuck, that's a really good movie.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't watch a lot of true history, like, disaster movies. Because I don't think there's really that many of them. But even if they are, it's like, obviously there's, like, really no surprise ending to it. Like, you can kind of cover, like, people that helped out and, like, things.
Do you think this helped conspiracy theorists or hurt them maybe? That, like, Oliver Stone, who's, like, kind of seemed, like, up there in the conspiracy echelon, is doing a movie about the World Trade Center and, like, and is not inserting any conspiracy theories whatsoever.
Well, except for the whole state of Israel being nuclear bombed. I thought that because like it's almost like Chris's character was like talking like, oh yeah, he's got the real updates, and then he talks about Israel being nuked into oblivion. I'm like, no. Was that really a news story, or was that really a rumor? Because that's weird. Because like all the people on the bus are like saying bullshit that not another plane hit it and stuff like that. It's just the fire spreading. And I didn't. I mean, I knew like a lot of the buildings surrounding there too were like destroyed or had heavy damage, but I didn't realize how many fucking collapsed in there too.
Yeah.
And so it was just like I guess I didn't really know enough about it to like know how far-reaching and damaging that was.
Yeah, because I mean the towers, that's World Trade Center 1 and 2, right? But then there's like
Yeah.
7 of them, and like Tower 4, which is a way smaller building, also collapsed. And
Collapse at free fall speed. Oh God.
But no, it's an interesting movie, and it was definitely better than Alexander. Nixon was probably the best movie so far from Oliver Stone. 4th of July, Born on the 4th of July is also good. I've seen it more times than any of the other movies on this list. Any Given Sunday was okay. Probably like as far as Oliver Stone top movies, like this is probably like 4th right now out of the ones I've seen up for the. Just because I've only seen so many, and like I didn't. Oh yeah, JFK would probably be number 1 or 2. I
yeah,
forgot about that for a second.
well, Platoon too. So.
Oh yeah, I don't like Platoon.
Oh,
I really,
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I can see that.
it's fine. It's not a bad movie. I just don't like. I prefer Full Metal Jacket. It's a better movie than Platoon is. But maybe I should watch it again. I've only watched it once, and maybe I just didn't pay
Oh,
attention. enough.
did we not have you watch it for this, or you weren't?
I wasn't part of that
Oh,
podcast
okay.
because I haven't seen Wall Street either. So,
Yeah, you're fine.
well, I mean, because I've read enough about it in
Wall Street's kind of like a lot of one-liners. That's kind of what makes that movie. And there's some interesting there's some interesting like cinema stuff they do, but it's not that important. So
Well, it's just like a
that
character
was also a movie they shot in like 2 weeks. Like he really like threw that movie together like really quickly.
Oh, okay.
Because he wanted to make a movie. He's like, because he didn't want to be a one-hit wonder, so he wanted to make sure he made a responsible and economic movie that made money immediately after his award-winning, Oscar-winning movie.
Nothing wrong with that.
So
No, it's just something where I like to watch Wall Street not because I think it's something that's going to change my life or a movie I'm going to highly regard, but just for a character study of why everybody on Wall Street wants to be Gordon Gekko. Because that's still a pervasive thing with their culture. Like they think he's the hero of that movie, and they love him so much, and they want to be him. And it's just like,
well, it's
if
because
you-
they think he's cool, and he's a guy
Well, yeah.
who doesn't give a shit, and he gets to do what he wants, and people want to do that.
This
Yo,
is why people voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly. So
yeah, no. I mean, everybody thinks that people that get away with everything and do everything they want are the best people. In reality, they're obviously the worst people. So, because no consequences and never failing and never leads to a good person.
and then the one, because we're gonna watch Snowden next. So the only one we didn't get in between was Savages, which I've seen, but it's been a while because it came out in 2012. And Andrew, you said you've seen it before.
Yeah, I've seen Savages and Snowden on my own.
Uh,
I didn't know Snowden was an Oliver Stone movie, and I actually like that one a lot.
Because I haven't seen it, but we're gonna watch that one next. That's gonna be our last one. But
Okay. Oh, you're not going to watch Savages again and talk about it?
no, I don't think so. I don't.
Well, I mean, I can't say there's a lot to go back for, but at the same time,
I'm trying to. I remember the plot being sort of like high concept. It was just kind of seemed like a lesser Sicario, but it came out before Sicario. It's like, but it's more of like drug lords trying to go legit. Oh fuck, I forget her name. She was in Desperado. Selma Hayek. She's pretty good in it. John Travolta's in it as like just some kind of like businessman who's like running this drug empire. I'm trying to remember it. I also think this is like one of those first movies where they're taking like Iraq veterans and then like, well, we don't have any other job skills, so let's rob drug dealers. Like I think that's the premise of the movie essentially. So I remember like having like some pretty cool, brutal action scenes, but I don't remember the movie necessarily being that good. It was also another one of those string of failures from that one actor we're talking about that was like in Battleship and John Carter from Mars. That guy, like he just can never catch a break.
Taylor.
yeah,
Yeah, Taylor. Yeah.
and also the guy from like Kick Ass and stuff like that's in it too. Was the other male?
Oh, is
male
he the
lead.
other guy? Okay.
Yeah, and he's had a weird career as far as I don't know if he's really highly regarded in Hollywood because he doesn't seem to get a lot of roles. Probably his most recent one is probably the Godzilla movie, the first one.
Oh, that was really good though. But
no, it was good. It's just like that was actually the best one out of all three so far.
Yeah.
Or I guess I haven't seen the King Kong one, but at the same time,
well,
I wouldn't.
It's not
expect a lot
out
from-
yet. So,
Well, yeah, it's just
or are you talking about Skull Island?
well,
Not-
Skull Island was fine. It's
Or are you referring to the Kong versus Godzilla one? That
The Kong versus
okay.
well, because the second one was such a train wreck that nobody liked it. I'm assuming they're going to follow up with the train wreck montage, just do shitty character stuff with like a little bit of monster fighting and call it a movie. I mean, the action looks good in it from the trailer, but I wouldn't say the movie itself was going to be good from that part of it.
I like how they're
mean-
just stealing the aircraft carrier fight from Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, I didn't know that was from that. So
Well, I mean, it could be simultaneous, but like, that's where I remember two monsters fighting on an aircraft carrier was from that show, not from Godzilla and King Kong.
But I mean, other than that, like I think he was in something else recently too. I can't remember what the. I should just IMDb it. What the fuck am I doing? Like I have a fucking.
But yeah,
weird-
Savages is okay, but and also it's another one I don't believe Oliver Stone wrote it. I don't think he's written anything since Alexander. You know.
Yeah, I don't think he has.
But also, we're skipping over like he's had a lot of prolific like documentary stuff that we've skipped over here. Like that stuff's been pretty good to interesting.
Oh, the I Love Dictators World Tour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Oliver Stone's America Showtime thing. That
Yeah, I
was
actually
pretty-
own that. Yeah.
That's pretty
I guess-
interesting.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, Aaron Taylor Johnson was in Tenet, and then he was also at Outlaw King, which I thought was a good movie, and I forgot he was in that too.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously he was also in Age of Ultron, which came out after Godzilla. So technically he's been in a good movie after Godzilla. But otherwise, like Nocturnal Animals, The Wall. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was a good movie.
Huh.
You ever the sniper movie in like No Man's Land? where
I
it's
saw.
like-
It has John Cena in it, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
as John
I
Cena.
just saw the trailer, but I didn't actually see the movie. But I thought it looked kind of interesting, but also it seemed like, well, this could be boring.
It's a good movie for I think what it does with. So I don't think it was a good big budget, and it's obviously a very small cast.
Yeah.
It's like people. So I think it does a pretty good job of it because it seems tense the entire time,
Okay.
and the ending is a little bit of a twist. So I thought it was good for what it was.
We're making phone booth in Iraq.
Oh yeah, phone booth. I remember that one.
Did you ever see Liberty Stand Still? The pretty much the exact same premise
Yeah,
that it has has Wesley Snipes in it.
yeah. It was Wesley Snipes. Was that post or pre-tax evasion arrest in prison?
Pre.
Okay.
It's one of those weird things where like Hollywood just comes out with essentially the same movie at the same time.
Yep.
But that one's the weirdest. Like Armageddon and Deep Impact coming out around the same time. That makes sense. Like, yeah, you're making disaster movies, but like Phone Booth coming out, and like Phone Booth probably has like the lesser known cast, but is the better made movie. Liberty Stand Still is probably like a better cast, but a worse movie. But also, both movies are not that good.
Yeah. Yeah, in their own universes against each other, they're bad. They're also just bad overall.
Well, because I never even heard of the Wesley Snipe one, so
Yeah, it's called
A
Liberty.
lot of
Stand-
people haven't.
Yeah, I don't even think it made theaters. I just saw it like on HBO one day. Like I think that when they were still doing their like Guilty Pleasure Friday block, you see like Ice-T and 40 action B movies, 40 action B movies, like Stealth and Mean Guns.
Mean Guns.
I think there's one called Mean Guns. I think Ice-T's in it.
I mean, it does. You wouldn't have to sell me too hard to make me believe.
Well, there's one that's called Scarred City, and it has oh fuck, one of the Baldwins. Who's the Stephen Baldwin and Tia Carrera, and it's like a dirty cop movie, and it's like like if you look at it overall, it's like this is a bad movie, but they follow the formula so well that it's like I like this movie. Like I know it's bad, but I like it. There's another like one of those B movies with Stephen Baldwin, and I can't remember what it's called, but like Kyle MacLachlan's in it. And it's about like body swapping.
Transfer or exchange.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think it's exchange. Yeah, that's
because you can only be in the body like 24 hours until it dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
well, also like Stephen Baldwin is like he plays clones and they're like worker bots, and I'm not
Yes.
sure if the worker bots like are the ones that are dying or if it's the transfer process that will end up being. But yeah, there's a great part when you see like this schlubby businessman like on a treadmill. And then like the camera pans over and it's like this big bodybuilder and it's like, hey Dave, like, well, because they transfer body and he just has his physical trainer go to his body to do his like his workout routine for him so he doesn't have to do it mentally. A lot of cool ideas in that movie. Not necessarily a good movie, but a lot of cool ideas.
Yeah.
And then what's but yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, that the HBO used to have like this Friday night guilty pleasure block, and it was just like all these like B action movies you never heard of, and like they all reused like the same explosion scene from Clear and Present Danger when like they blow up the mansion of the drug dealer or whatever with like a
Yeah.
yeah, like apparently that's just like stock footage now for B movies. Like I just reuse that scene.
Why not? Save millions.
I remember that being a cool scene in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen? But, well, that's all I got for this week, guys.
All right.
This week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew.
Goodbye, America.